there's a lot to talk about, and on the top of everyone's minds is still the tariffs and isolationism at large of Trump administration, the U.S., and honestly how it affects you and I as Asians and the plight of Asian Americans.
Yeah, and I think it's funny, right? Because I like how you phrase it, honestly, Jeff.
Yeah.
Isolationism, because we put out some reels recently from our last podcast talking about the tariffs.
Yeah.
And people were saying, oh, it's protectionism. No, he's trying to protect American economies.
Yeah.
He's trying to, make sure that manufacturing in America is protected.
Yeah.
But that's just not accurate the way I see it, right? Because that was already happening, right? For example, BYD.
Yeah.
Right? Electric cars were being manufactured more cheaply and could be sold for cheaper. So there were already tariffs on that. That's protectionism. That's protecting America's local industries.
Yeah.
But these tariffs are so broadly sweeping.
Yeah.
I can't call it anything but isolationism. This is trying to cut America off from the rest of the world.
Well, I don't need to beat a drum, but everyone does know that they had funny math doing this.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't reciprocal. It was a blanket tariff across the board and using trade deficits or imbalances to justify any type of reciprocal tariff that they put on, which is not reciprocal by definition. But I think there's a lot of things about these tariffs people are not really seeing or they're getting wrong.
Yeah.
A lot of people are saying, yeah, bring the jobs back. We should be, and if it's not made here, you should try to make it here, right? But I'll give you an example. This is personal to me. They don't make enough coconuts here.
That's right, because you're an entrepreneur.
There's no bananas here. There's no coconuts here. It's impossible. So what that says is anything that's not grown here, that's not from here, will then be tariffed and taxed. So if you're a consumer of those items, shit out of luck.
Yeah.
That's what it's saying. It's really not saying we want to bring industry back. It's saying to the consumer, if you like something that's made in another country, period, stop liking that stuff or pay more for it because you should be eating oranges instead of bananas. And that essentially goes against the concept of free trade and weirdly rights as an individual of what your preferences are. And through the past 30, 50 years, whatever you want to call it, the largest beneficiary of free trade has been the U.S., contrary to popular belief. How is that? Why do you have a $150 TV? Yeah. Why is your standard of living higher? Because of this comparative advantage in economics where it's you don't want to grow your own food and make your own clothes and, just everything in your life be self-sustaining. Yeah,
well, this is something that I've seen in the comments of our last video and in other places online, right? People are going on about America, somehow thinking that America's gotten the short end of the stick in this global trade. Yeah. Right? Somehow thinking that America's, the trade deficit that we have with other countries, that's us doing them a favor.
Yeah. I saw some politicians go on TV and going, you know what? These countries have been stealing our money for long enough, stealing taxpayers' dollars. In my mind, I'm like, when I buy something from Best Buy and I get a TV in return, they're not stealing my money. I am making an economic transaction. I buy something from you and then I receive something in return, a good or a service. And if I'm buying more than you are buying from me, it's because I have more money than you. That's why there's a trade imbalance. So if you're saying trade should be balanced, okay, either America gets poorer.
Yeah, less money
to buy fewer things from overseas, or you're expecting Bangladesh to all of a sudden have the same economy as the U.S. To buy equal amounts of products.
Which is just not going to happen.
Which is just ridiculous. So which gets me to my next thought is that they don't want this to work out. The meaning the administration doesn't want a trade balance because they're basically setting a goalpost that's impossible. Mm-hmm. So if that's the case, it's the same thing. Whenever I reject someone to do a show or to do a concert, I just give them a price that they can't afford. Yeah. I don't say no, right? I do something that's impossible because my ultimate goal is I don't want to do that job. Yeah. Right? Okay, so if that's the next if that is the next piece of the puzzle, we don't want to trade. Yeah. Okay, then we're talking about isolationism as the way I framed it earlier. Mm-hmm. And the dangers of isolationism is that you essentially become North Korea. You're
just not a part of the global economy anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
You're opting out. Correct. And people who say, what's wrong with that? We should be self-sustaining, right? As a family, do you want to grow your own food, sew your own clothes, create your own energy, mine your own coal or, whatever it is? Think about how ridiculous of an idea that is. You want to go buy your clothes from a store. You want to go buy your food from a market. Because as a family, you don't have the time, resources, wherewithal, knowledge to actually do all those things.
Yeah. And that's where our nation is at now, right? Because we've had the last decades of global trade. Yeah. Now there's so many things that, sure, amazing. In I don't know, 1952, we were producing certain things domestically. Yeah. That ship has long sailed.
Yeah. And not to say that can't happen again, because yes, that should happen. Like the imbalance is out of whack. I think everyone can kind of agree with that. It happened during COVID that we couldn't get enough masks, right? No. Like, okay, fine. That is completely valid. But if this was some grand plan or something like this, you would start building up your industry domestically first before jumping in to a trade war. Because now you just made building costs go up by 50%. Yeah. So now you're going to spend 50% more on building factories to make plastic goods. That doesn't make much sense either. So people who think they're playing 4D chess and there's some master plan going on, I just don't buy it. And how does that affect you and I? How does that affect the Asian community? Well, we're sold an American dream of come here, build businesses, be the model minority, contribute to society, and sell your goods. There's a lot of mom and pop shops that are owned by
Asian Americans are the Asian American community has one of the highest rates of entrepreneurship. Right, we per capita start more small businesses than most communities. Yeah, and I feel like another misconception that's happening is that people think that this trade war is a zero-sum game, meaning if I win, you lose. Like there's, you and I have both been accused of being mouthpieces of the CCP. I've had that a lot happen, and China will cave and this that. It's like, no, man, I'm just looking at the chessboard. Straight up, like I'm just being objective and looking at what I see. And they've done a lot of preparation because they've already known, I'm saying China, they've had Trump in power before. That started almost a quasi trade war that didn't happen. Yeah. They saw that and prepared for his next administration. So and they saw what happened to Russia during Ukraine. Yeah. So they've done a lot of preparation on their side that people don't understand. So the idea that someone will cave or someone will lose or win is really looking at this from a overly simplistic point of view. And I just warn people who are supportive of this thing, of these crazy policies, to actually respect each country and understand that the playing field is not what you see from the media or from what senators or whoever are trying to get you to believe so they can be sycophantic in their praise of their supreme leader, Trump, right now. Yeah, I think people are so divorced from reality right now, right? Because there's so many talking heads that, frankly, whether you're on the right or the left, they're just going to reinforce what you're already thinking. Yeah. Right? If you want to think that Trump is God's chosen president and he's charting this country in the right course, you can find plenty of people who will say, yes, everyone else is just a libtard who doesn't know what they're talking about. Yeah. They're coping. Dude, all you have to do is go to the grocery store.
Yeah.
Go and see, like, dude, people are losing their jobs. People are going to be losing their homes over these inflation, over the way the economy is cratering out right now.
Yeah.
And we need to pull away from the sound bites online. Ironically, obviously, because we're talking online. But this is something that I really believe in, is we need to reestablish like actual human connection.
Yeah.
Last weekend, my friends and I, we went out for dinner. We just sat there and we just talked face to face because it's been so long since we've had human connection. You can go day in, day out without human connection.
Yeah.
And I think that that's so often what I'm seeing happening right now is people forget what it's like to talk to and empathize with another human being. And all we see around us are people that we can dunk on to score points for our side.
Well, like you said, it's kind of a feedback loop that we get from the algorithm nowadays, where you don't get any views from opposing opinions, or if you do, it's someone reacting to it and go, how stupid are these bobo liberals? Like people, like, I can't believe I'm even
Apparently
accused of one. But yeah, I'm as conservative as they get. But it's it's sad that this is what we've come to. And another thing that's sad to me is I never thought I'd see this, but I always thought with a global economy and the internet and the exchange of thought that the world would go more and more amongst like America as a free speech, liberal society, not liberal in the left wing term.
Yeah, liberal as an open.
As an open society. And that would even permeate into China. And actually it has, right? There's more freedom of expression there as ever before, especially if you look at 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But I never thought the U.S. would go more
in the other direction. So there's this Guatemalan guy, right? Yeah. The government's admitted that he did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
They said he was mistakenly caught up.
I think his tattoos were like a mom and dad tattoo or something.
Yeah, and so they were like, oh, this is a dude, he's in a gang, he's a target for this. He's now sitting in El Salvador, and the government's actively doing nothing to bring him back. They've admitted they were wrong for sending him, and they said, not our problem. So this is what's starting to happen now.
Well, the crazy thing to me is that it's happening in front of our eyes. Like,
very openly.
Do you know what I mean?
Not even hidden.
Like, this is like whenever I looked up history and how like sycophants became dictators and etc., you think it's like just one moment that it just kind of happens.
Yeah.
But
it's like this.
It's like this where it's being done in methodical, quote unquote, legal ways, because they're either distorting the law or they're putting certain judges in power, and they're getting people on the legislative side of the aisle to, support certain things. It's just happening in front of our eyes, and it's a trip to me.
Well, Jeff, right, because what they're not doing, they're not lining people up against a wall and, finishing them. But short of that, and you know what? I think media is to blame.
Okay.
I think media is to blame because, especially in America, we have this vision of, good and evil fighting it out.
Yeah.
And what does that always look like in Hollywood? Right? It always looks like two dudes punching each other until one of them wins.
Yeah, sure.
That's not how revolutions, that's not how conflicts usually take place. As you point out, it's actually what happens in the wake of a revolution, that all that stuff starts happening when nations are fighting each other. But the takeover is rarely as obvious as, all right, line everybody up in one bloody day and finish it. It's usually things like, engineering a way to get a couple more votes in Congress, and then next thing you know, this party controls all the government.
Well, if you think about it, right, you're attacking intellectuals, right? Journalists, higher education,
graduate students,
professors,
professors,
or you're debunking them and saying they're I don't know, they're left wing or too woke or just completely discounting their intellect, because the smart people are the ones who are seeing what's happening and go, wait, there's something wrong here.
Yeah.
This so you see the methodical
silencing.
Yeah, it's a silencing of dissent and like rational thought, intellectualism, all in the name of, if you're not with us, you're against us.
Yeah, and as you point out, it's funny because I identify very much. Yeah, I'm pretty progressive, maybe even leftist. You're not.
Yeah.
But what I appreciate about you is you genuinely are for open conversation. Let the best idea win.
Yeah.
Let's talk it out. Let the proof be in the pudding.
Right.
Right. And that's not what we're seeing here.
Yeah. I don't need to rig the game.
Yeah.
For my thoughts or at least even to have a discussion, not even an argument. I don't need to say, all right, I just don't want to hear your side of it. Shut the fuck up. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's kind of what we're kind of witnessing.
Absolutely.